DJI continues to rule the air, and with each new announcement, they set the bar higher. And you know what? The DJI Mavic Air 2 is no exception. It has a few standout features like 4K video recording at 60 frames per second, a high-resolution 48 megapixel camera mode, and 34 minutes of flight time. Now, all this points to the ultimate drone. But is it? Well, let's find out. Technically, the Mavic Air 2 is slightly larger and heavier than its predecessor, but it's not a problem. You could still fold it for easy storage in a backpack. Meanwhile, the hard lines in its design gives it a more aggressive look, and it's a warranted change given the upgrades under the hood. Now, if you're worried about all the extra bulk slowing it down, don't be. It still reaches a top speed of 42.5 miles per hour, just like its predecessor. I personally like piloting it in normal mode, just because you get that balance of speed and responsiveness. You could switch it to sport mode for tighter controls, while tripod mode offers slower and smoother movements. It's also quieter than other drones I've flown, but I'm impressed more by its battery life. It's rated for 34 hours of flight time, which is the longest in the Mavic line. At the center of the Mavic Air 2 is a new 12 megapixel half-inch quad-Bayer CMOS sensor on a 3-axis gimbal. The sensor is larger than what's found in the Mavic Air and the Mavic Mini. Photographers will be especially happy to find a new 48 megapixel high resolution mode because there's more detail and sharpness than its 12 megapixel snapshots, but dynamic range isn't as good. However, I'm able to recover some of the details in the shadows in post using an editor. It's good if you want to crop images, but I found the 12 megapixel snapshots perfect for social media posts. The DJI Mavic Air 2 is a beast when it comes to video. You have 4K 60 frames per second video capture, and that's at a bitrate of 120 megabits per second, so there is some room for flexibility to work on the footage later on in post. I also prefer shooting in the D-Cine-like profile. You get rich and sharp details with low contrast. There's also HDR video. It's a handy option when you want the best results without having to work on the footage later on. You get improved dynamic range, so highlights, for example, are toned down. The sky won't be blown out, and it will have better exposure to match the rest of the footage. Colors also receive a bump in saturation too. Now, the only issue is that noise is more prevalent in the shadows. Other notable improvements over its predecessor include 1080p slow motion at both 120 and 240 frames per second, as well as an 8K hyperlapse mode that essentially speeds up the footage into these bite-sized clips. And yes, you get all the cool shooting modes that DJI has perfected to give content creators professionally made video. The weakest part of the Mavic Air 2 is its low light performance, and that's kind of expected considering the sensor's size. I took it out right at dusk with the sun already below the horizon, and there's a definite increase in noise and details are muddier. Whether you're a first-time or casual flyer, there's no worry about flying the DJI Mavic Air 2 thanks to its advanced collision avoidance system. You have forward and backward obstacle sensors, just like in the Mavic Air, but DJI added downward-facing sensors as well. It works pretty good. It actually stopped the drone dead in its tracks from colliding with a tree, even when I had my thumb pushing forward on the controls. It's assuring that it's smart enough to avoid potential disasters. And finally, there's also AirSense technology that allows it to receive signals from other nearby aircraft and shows it on your phone screen. The controller for the Mavic Air 2 is a bit chunky, but I still found it comfortable to use. I like how the joysticks and cables are tucked away when you're not using them. However, the pull-out cradle can be a bit finicky, especially if you have a thicker case on your phone. The DJI Mavic Air 2 is an impressive drone that's fun, easy, and safe to fly. Whether you're new to the drone scene or you fly professionally, it has everything you'll need. It starts at $800, but I urge you to spend the extra money to pick up the Fly More combo at $988 because you're getting more value. You get a total of 3 batteries, a set of ND filters, extra propeller blades, and a carrying case. Those accessories more than make up the difference.